This is the same hair weave client. The hair on the left is how she came in. The hair on the right is how she left. As a stylist, when I see a client come in with this type of tangled, matted hair weave, I know that they didn't take care of their hair. In order to take care of sew-in hair weave, you've got to use the proper shampoo. I recommend the B3 shampoo, conditioner, and hair mask. Now this client, she went camping and she shampooed her hair in well water and she did not comb it out. She went to sleep and her hair matted. I applied our Nourishing Lipid Serum to her natural hair and I was able to separate the hair weave hair from her natural hair. Then I went in with the seam ripper. If anybody's a sewer out there, then you know about the seam ripper, right? The seam ripper is perfect for removing any type of sew-in hair weave, whether it's the invisible beaded sew-in or the braided sew-in. Here's an image of the seam ripper that I'm using. You can see it has 2 points. The shortest point is dull and the longest point is sharp. It allows me to go in and loosen the sewing threads and then cut where necessary. I start the removal process at the top layer of the sew-in hair weave and then I work my way down to the nape. I love this video shot because not only does it show you how to remove the threads with the seam ripper, it also gives you a really good view of how I tacked down the braids and how I created the base for the sew-in hair weave. Today, there are so many different types of hair extensions we can use, and it depends on the client's natural hair, their desired length, and their lifestyle to determine which hair weave technique we use. With this client, I chose to use a sew-in hair weave because she needed a protective style to cover her entire back half of her head. What I did with this hair weave is I created a fall. You'll see, keep watching the video and you'll see how I create her new hair weave. Now this client, she doesn't like to do anything to her hair. That's why I chose this protective sew-in hair weave. I'm removing these hair wefts in the opposite order that I sewed them in, okay? I sewed them in from the nape, from the bottom to the crown, and I'm removing them from the crown to the nape. I'm applying a little bit of tension. I'm pulling the weft away from the braids. I'm using the dull end of the seam ripper to loosen the thread, and where necessary, I'm clipping the thread. Oh, this is a really good view. You see, this is the beginning of the edge of the weft, right? So here I definitely have to clip, nip, cut the threads because the hair is doubled up and sewed down at the edges. I like to use a contrasting thread color so that it's easier for me to see and remove the thread without cutting any of her natural hair. I had a client once who let her child remove the sew-in weave with scissors, and she ended up with big chunks of her hair cut out all over her head. So if you know someone who has a sew-in hair weave, whether it's the beaded sew-in hair weave or the braided sew-in, and they want to remove their weave at home, share this video with them. Buy them a sewing seam ripper so that they can remove the sewing threads without damaging the natural hair. I think the most important takeaway from this first part of our video is don't even try to detangle the matted artificial hair. Don't even try to comb out the sew-in that's matted and tangled. Simply separate it from the natural hair and then begin removing it from the base. I applied our Nourishing Lipid Serum all over the braids and all over her natural hair. That helped the threads as well as the human hair wefts to become more elastic and pliable and easier to remove. For those clients who really want to grow their hair out and they need a protective style so that they don't have to touch the hair at all, the sew-in hair weave is a perfect option. This entire removal process only took me 15 minutes. And this is the result. Her hair has really grown, I would say up to 2 to 3 inches. Once again, I'm applying our nourishing lipid serum before I do anything else. Why? Because her hair is coarse and it's thick. And remember, I told you she didn't do anything to it. It's dry, it's devitalized, and she's up to 80% gray. She came in with clean hair. It was just tangled and matted. So I'm going to go in after this serum, and I'm going to braid our base for the new hair weave. Remember I told you I'm going to create a weave that looks like a hair fall. Now, you know, a hair fall, a fall is applied to half of your hair, the back half of your hair, and then the crown and the front sides are left out. So I created that fall with the human hair wefts. I sewed it in. And now I'm going to use demi-permanent hair color to blend the human hair wefts with her natural hair. Well, it's not actually her natural hair color. It's her artificial hair color that we created for her. Remember I told you she was up to 80% gray. So we color her natural hair dimensional warm blonde. And it's difficult for me to find the human hair wefts to match the color that I do on her natural hair. That's what I'm trying to say. I purchased the human natural wefts in a blonde that's 3 to 4 levels lighter than the color I have on her hair. That way it's easier for me to drop down 2 or 3 levels and blend it all together. Because that's the whole goal, is to have a blended dimensional blonde hair color that looks very natural. Because she's up to 80% gray, I'm using this demi-permanent hair color. Now, the demi-permanent hair colors, they sit on the outside of the hair. They sit on the cuticle layer. They don't go into the cortex. And that's why I'm using them. Because they sit on the outside of the hair, it's easier for me to rinse off of the human hair wefts as well as her braided hair underneath. I'm going to say that again. I only use demi-permanent hair colors when I do this process because demi-permanent sit on the outside of the hair. They sit on the cuticle layers. They do not go into the cortex, and they are easier to rinse off of the human hair wefts as well as the braided hair underneath. Also, water pressure is super important when you're using this hair weave hair color technique. You need the pressure of the water to be extremely forceful because it's the water that's going to push that demi-permanent out of the hair wefts as well as the braided hair. That's really what I'm concerned with, is getting that demi-permanent off of that braided hair underneath. So you need professional strength water force. I would never do this at home because I've never been to anybody's house that had the same water pressure as a professional salon. I begin the demi-permanent hair color application just as if it was her natural hair. I begin at the bottom, at the nape, and I work my way up. I divided that back section into 2 sides, a right panel and a left panel. This is a perfect example. You see here, I'm starting at the bottom at the nape, and I'm working my way up. I'm applying the demi-permanent hair color on both sides of the hair weft. I'm beginning with the weft hair first because it takes longer for the human wefted hair to color than it does for her natural hair. You see, natural hair is far more porous than the human hair wefts. And her natural hair is more porous because we do more things to it. Like I said, she has a keratin treatment, she has bleach, and she has demi-permanent hair color on her natural hair. If you've watched our other beauty wellness hair care hair color videos, then you've heard me talk about porosity. And I always tell you that porosity only matters when you're coloring the hair. Now, porosity is the hair's ability to absorb. And porosity is created when you abrade the cuticle layer. Babies are not born with porous hair. Healthy, natural hair has a compact, smooth cuticle. The reason the cuticle becomes porous is because the cuticle has become abraded, and when the cuticle layer is abraded, it's lifted and the hair is rough. And there are 2 major culprits that contribute to abraded cuticle layers in ethnic hair and black hair, and that is no-lie relaxers and high heat from cheap flat irons, as well as high heat from Marcel irons. Oh, another contributor to damaged cuticle layers in my black sister's hair are the products they use, the shampoos. Oftentimes they use those detergent shampoos that are just like the detergent you use to mop your floors with, and they damage and abrade the cuticle layer. They dry out the hair and cause the cuticle layer to lift. And then when they put that gel and that foam and all that hard stuff that leaves their hair like cement, well, it looks good for 2 weeks, but you're going to have to use a detergent to get that stuff out. And that damages the cuticle layer. That causes porosity, increased porosity. We can already see the demi-permanent hair color processing. It is depositing pigments onto the cuticle layers. Yes, there are many, many cuticle layers in our hair. The thicker your hair is, the thicker each individual hair strand is, the more cuticle layers you have. Anyway, you can see the hair processing, right? The color is being deposited into the cuticle layers. And the hair color you see while the hair is being processed is not the same color that the hair is going to be in the end. I'll say that again. With professional hair colors, a color that uses a developer, and demi-permanents do use a developer, the color you see during the processing phase is not the final hair color. What you're seeing is the color being formed, right? The color change that you see is the hair color being formed. Now, in permanent hair color, what happens is they remove pigments and they add pigments. With demi-permanent hair colors, all they do is add pigments. Demi-permanent hair colors are a deposit-only hair color. At least that's what the manufacturers say. I've been able to use demi-permanent hair colors to get lift, but that's a whole nother conversation that we have in our professional hair color masterclass. Because when you're dealing with hair color, natural hair color levels 1 through 5 is a whole new game to get to a cool blonde. The rules that apply to hair that's a natural level 5 and above are different than the rules for hair color 5 and below. And we, like I said, we get into that in our hair color masterclass. You can learn more about our hair color masterclass on our platform at beautywellnesshaircare.com. I applied this demi-permanent hair color in 3 phases. The first phase was the human hair wefts of the fall in the back half of her hair. The second phase was the front, right and left panels and top crown of her natural hair. The third phase of the application was to go in between the wefts and apply the demi-permanent hair color to the braids and her natural hair. The total processing time of this hair color is 45 minutes. Throughout the process, you want to cross-check and look to see how the hair color is being absorbed. And when you see there are gaps, when you see there are spaces where the processing is not even, you go in and you apply more hair color product. With demi-permanent hair colors, no heat lamps, no color processors. You just let them process at room temperature. You want to make sure if you have an air conditioner on that is not blowing directly on the hair color that's being processed, because it can affect the color results. Throughout the processing, you want to check to see how the color is being absorbed, and where necessary, you want to apply more hair color product. Now, her hair was clean when she came in, so I didn't need to shampoo. All I'm going to do is rinse this demi-permanent hair color off. I already added some really good stuff. I added B3 to the hair color. I also added some collagen to the hair color, and I'm sending her home with this B3 shampoo, conditioner, and hair mask so that she can maintain her hair weave and she won't come in with her hair tangled anymore. And this is her hair dried under an ionic hood dryer. Look at the color. It really balances and blended. Now, I used a demi-permanent on her 80% gray to blend the gray. Now, this was, I consider, a quick appointment. Typically, when we have to do the keratin treatment and the hair color, it can last up to 4 or 5 hours because her hair is so dense and it's so thick. So I consider this 3-hour appointment a quickie. So I wasn't trying to cover her gray. What I was trying to do is blend her natural hair with the artificial human hair wefts that we sold on. It blends perfectly. It looks really natural. Now, because her hair is super, super dense, super coarse, each individual hair strand is super thick, I knew that she could take a full-on braided sew-in hair weave. Now, if the hair was super thin, super fine, I would never attempt this hair weave technique. But because of the hair density and the hair diameter and her lifestyle, she didn't want to do anything to her hair. This was the perfect hair weave solution. You can see from her hair's new growth that it's been about up to 3 months since she wore her previous weave. And hopefully she won't go more than 6-7 weeks before she comes in to have the full major surgery where we take the weave off, we give her a keratin treatment and a hair color. Because her hair is so coarse and so dense, I'm using our titanium flat iron to smooth and polish all of the hair. Actually, leaving a little bit of her gray hair exposed makes the whole hair weave look more natural, less artificial. What do you think? I think I blended the natural hair color with the human hair wefts perfectly. When was the last time you added color to your client's hair weave? I continue flat ironing and smoothing the crown of this client's hair. I'm not trying to add curl. Like I said, with the flat iron, what you do is you smooth, you polish, and you add curve for movement. Here, this is a better shot so you can see. I'm using the flat iron at the base, at the roots first. Remember I told you her hair is coarse and dense with the ability to get quite kinky. I didn't use any gel, any mousse, any foam on her hair. I dried her with the Joico leave-in reconditioner. I'll leave the link below. I sent her home with our nourishing lipid serum. It's going to provide her hair with intense nourishment without leaving her hair feeling heavy or greasy. She can put it on her hair before she goes to bed or after she uses the flat iron at home. It will provide elasticity and nourishment. It's 100% organic and it's good for all hair texture, density, and diameters. Look at this sew-in hair weave and hair color, right? The hair color is flawless. It's seamless. You can't tell the difference between her natural hair color and the hair wefts that I sewed in. Once again, because her hair is so dense, so coarse, and the diameter of each individual hair strand is so thick, she could pull off a complete sew-in hair weave. Well, it's not complete. It's like a fall. I created a hair weave fall for the back half of her hair. And this is what it looks like in full daylight. You know she did not want me to cut an inch off of her hair. So I left it as is. I left it natural. I did not cut her into a style. What do you think about the hair color? Have you ever applied hair color after you've applied a hair weave? Whether it's sew-in or invisible beaded or tape-in or glue-in, have you ever colored your client's hair with the hair weave on? Let me know down below in the comments. You can't even tell it's a sew-in hair weave. This should last, like I say, it could last up to 8 weeks, but I'm hoping she'll be back in 6 weeks so we can do major surgery. Take this hair weave off, give her a keratin smoothing treatment, really get rid of those grays at the roots, turn them into dimensional blonde highlights, and then we'll add some more hair. Thanks for watching. Hey, and come visit us. Give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and come visit us on our platform at beautywellnesshaircare.com.